Good morning. It's another Monday morning, and I'm so grateful to behold this day. We have about 30 seconds before we get going with our inspirational vitamin as I wait here for some of you to log on. I just want to ask you, as I do every week, how was your week? How did you make it out? If you're listening to me, if you're hearing me as I speak, that means you have had a better week than some who did not. Certainly, we are still dealing with the pandemic that plagued this country and plagued the world, but hopefully you and your loved ones have been okay and you have not been affected directly with this pandemic. And we're still hoping, and those who know how to pray are praying that this thing will move through even much quicker than what the expert may have anticipated. This morning, good morning, as I said earlier, is our word for the week. For those of you who perhaps joining me for the first time, I have started doing Inspirational Vitamin every Monday morning at around 10. And what it is basically is a word that I have decided to kind of share with you that can help you throughout the week. A word of reflection, a word that perhaps we can focus on rather than focus on some of the things that oftentimes get us back down into what we're doing. I thought about give you something that will inspire your week and help you to focus more beyond even the circumstances and the challenges that we face throughout the week. So this week, the word is obedience. Obedience basically has been defined by some as compliance with an order or request or law or submission to another's authority. Obedience oftentimes moved us from what I consider complacency to compliance. Many years ago, when I was studying the handbook to take the driver's test, one of the things that stood out to me was the emphasis on obeying the stop signs. Several years ago in the state of Florida that I've resided, there are several cities and municipalities that have enacted a red light camera law. If you run the red lights, basically, you would get a ticket in the mail. Those who argue for this camera or the cameras to be installed at these intersections was concerned about the number of accidents that are happening at various intersections across the state because motorists failed to obey the stoplights. The laws in the United States are legislated to govern the country and for us as citizens to obey. When you violate the laws, there are consequences. It was Samuel who said, obey, or to obey rather, is better than sacrifice. Zig Ziglar, in one of his books written, he said that when we disobey God, we always lose. Well said, Zig. When I was growing up, my parents used to say to me, don't lie, don't steal, and many other things that they cautioned me against. Can I tell you that every time that I stepped out of line and disobeyed those rules, I faced the consequences. And they weren't sometimes very pleasant. Obedience may sound simplistic, but for some people, it is exceedingly difficult to be obedient. There is something about obedience that builds character in a person. Whether you're self-employed or you work for someone, there are protocols that requires you to obey or to be obedient and to follow. When there is an infraction or a violation of those protocols, there are consequences. There is always a price to pay when you do not obey. So, the question is this morning, why not just be obedient? Perhaps for some of you, you are risk takers and hoping that you won't get caught if you run the red light or if you show up late for work and sneak through the back door pretending that you were early, or maybe you just like to test the system. Whatever the reasons, obedience certainly will produce less stress. build character and integrity, and empower you to look ahead and not behind you. So as you go through your week this week, be obedient. It may look like I've done it before and there was no response, there was no satisfaction, but trust me, when you obey, it's better than the sacrifice that oftentimes you face or the consequences that you face when you disobey. As always, share this with your friends, with your family, your loved ones on social media, and join me next week, same time, same place for your word for your week. Until then, just be obedient. See you then.